The mountain stronghold burned under a fierce, darkening sky, the screams muted by ruin. The courtyard echoed with frantic running as the alliance swarmed the burning mountain peak. The heavy impact echoed as Jin Yomyang planted his foot down in fierce resolve. A searing, blinding light consumed the fortress as Jin Yomyang rushed toward the heart of the assault. The cult leader fled into the twilight, leaving behind only the heavy silence and her resolute shadow. The inner administrator breathed heavily, his eyes burning with urgent resolve. The older man rushed forward, his agitated steps echoing on the damp stone. Jin Yomyang could only look up, trapped by the sheer force of the confrontation. The cult leader's gaze held an unexpected glimmer, challenging the inevitability of death. The cult leader sat silently, enveloped in the chilling mist of the throne room, awaiting her fate. The elder's face twisted in horror against the burning twilight sky. A gentle, yet determined hand rested upon the cult leader's dark robe. The air grew still as Jin Yomyang's desperate plea hung between them. Against the fading twilight, she offered a soft, unexpected smile. A romantic relationship starts when one is interested in another's disinterest. The heavy thudding of footsteps echoed against the blood-soaked courtyard. Jin Yomyang finally arrived, breathless, before the unmoving cult leader. A long, heavy sigh escaped her lips amidst the distant, burning ruin. Jin Yomyang heaved, straining against the ancient, heavy door, his efforts ignored. A raw shout ripped through the chaos as Jin Yomyang refused to accept the cold finality. The heavy door groaned under Jin Yomyang's desperate strength, his shout echoing near the cult leader. A sharp, decisive step echoed in the silent chamber, closing the distance between them. A blinding light pierced the shadowed hall as a painful cry echoed near the heavy doors. The cult leader's face, stained with sweat and emotion, showed an impossible depth of suffering. The inner administrator could only manage a shocked whisper as the cult leader stared back. Despite his heavy breath, Jin Yomyang struggled up the imposing stone steps toward the cult leader. A soft step, a final shift in posture before the inevitable. Her resolute heart declared a future built on vengeance alone. Jin Yomyang ascended the steps toward the cult leader, deep in the vast, silent hall. The cult leader sat still, the crimson in her eyes holding a terrible, final resolve. She listened to Jin Yomyang's desperate plea, the shadow of betrayal heavy in the silent room. The inner administrator watched, his face etched with dawning realization and desperate hope. The chilling names of poisons echoed in the grand hall, confirming the depth of her fate. The inner administrator gritted his teeth, every muscle strained by the heavy door. Who said it was impossible? He fiercely retorted into the silence. The cult leader stood, veiled in shadow, as Jin Yomyang finally faced her. The dying light illuminated the ashes where the cult's mountain home once stood. The cold sweat clung to her as the cult leader stared back, her crimson eyes holding a terrible clarity. The cult leader looked up, a chilling, triumphant smile cutting through the blinding white light. The cult leader, pale and sweating, gave Jin Yomyang a strangely intense look. Jin Yomyang stared, shocked by the cult leader's unexpected, almost casual rejection of his devotion. She saw him falling, a shadow against the blinding white light, someone who was always stern. The inner administrator kneeled low, shadowed by the ornate, doomed pavilion. The inner administrator looked down, his resolve hardening amidst the fiery light. He would achieve her wish, even if she would never remember. The cult leader's expression twisted, sweat dripping down as Jin Yomyang declared, "I'll." Jin Yomyang's desperate grasp tightened on the luxurious white fabric. The sound of a muffled thud echoed in the suffocating silence. The cult leader's crimson eyes narrowed at the impossible question echoing in the deepening gloom. The cult leader's smile, suddenly bright, defied the creeping silence of doom. The cult leader rested quietly, the dim light catching the silent weight of her decision. A fragile smile touched her lips, a stark contrast to the poison already consuming her core. A faint, knowing smile finally touches the lips of the dying cult leader. The cult leader blinked slowly, the darkness deepening around her echoed by the sound. My help? Jin Yomyoung's earnest gaze looked up, a strange, hopeful light breaking through his despair. Her soft silhouette stood against the blinding light, a fragile resolve holding the end. The cult leader offered a strange, knowing smile amidst the suffocating dark. She dismissed the difficulty of love, claiming the pursuit had only just begun. The cult leader smiled, her eyes glowing with strange, settled conviction. The jagged shadows of the ravaged mountains loomed over the last remnants of their world. The heartless demonic empress sat still, the dim light catching her dangerous crimson eyes. Jin Yomyoung froze, his certainty shattering at her unexpected words. The vast, silent chamber swallowed the tiny figure, an echo of her final, fading strength. Amidst the falling white petals, a quiet space opened for her heavy resolve. A single, sharp cry of agony echoed against the silent fortress walls. The sharp glint of steel descended onto the silent, defeated ground. Even specters watched the final, heavy stillness settle over the courtyard. The cult leader's composure finally fractured under the weight of Jin Yomyoung's earnest gaze. The cult leader looked up, the harsh reality of poison mixing with a fleeting, distant hope. The man in white leaned close, claiming that even the impossible could begin with just one interested heart. The cult leader looked up, a slight, knowing smile touching her lips. "Ra," she whispered. The demon cult leader looked up, sweat beading on her temples beneath the heavy silk. Her eyes, wide and burning red, finally saw the past she desperately tried to escape. The young cult leader only offered a cryptic, knowing smile in the heavy, lingering silence. The cult leader's lingering gaze held a weight of history before the darkness swallowed her. Now Jin Yomyoung knelt, hearing the familiar voice promising closeness. A choked gasp escaped as the truth of his past words hit the startled Jin Yomyoung. "When did I say that?" he stammered, confusion clouding the air. Her face hardened with fierce resolve. Any leak of that secret meant absolute destruction. The young man knelt, the silence heavy in the shadowed room, facing his stern father's glare. A sudden, sharp impact shattered the lingering silence with a deafening qualm. The vast hall echoed with tension as Jin Yomyoung watched the final figures approach the dais. The young master flashed a cold, knowing smile, utterly dismissing his past self's boasts. The alliance leader observed, his sharp eyes cold with concealed judgment. What was he suddenly shouting about? Completely bewildered by his own past claims, the Asura king's eyes gleamed with manic, terrible joy at his son's confession. The Asura king's cold hand stopped him just short of striking. He sneered, thinking his son was completely pathetic. A knowing smirk stretched across his face, purple eyes gleaming dangerously near her ear. The Asura king's finger shot out, trapping Jin Yomyoung in his furious command. He insisted, "Didn't you boldly declare that you will become the young cult leader's future spouse?" Her smile, slicked with sweat and effort, held a chilling finality in the dim light. The Jin clan patriarch's manic grin promised trouble, burning with cruel expectation. The heartless demon empress looked upon her fate, sweat beading in the oppressive silence. A low rumble echoed through the hall as the honored guests gazed toward the high dais. Jin Yomyang stood silent, feeling the weight of his father's cold expectations settle upon him. That gaze, cold and appraising, held no warmth for the words just spoken. The Asura king roared, his blade suddenly lunging forward in blind fury. His son recoiled, realizing this confrontation had turned deadly. The cult leader's gaze held a strange, sharp finality, even as the air thickened with unspoken threat. The Asura king's mad laughter echoed, the blade catching a cold, sharp glint in the dim light. The crimson energy surged, screaming the name of the forbidden, heaven-slaying demon sword art. The servant stared back, eyes wide with shock at the young master's sudden denial. He sputtered, unable to fathom why the bold declaration had vanished so quickly. "Attack them," the raging elder commanded as bodies rained down into the crimson abyss. The chilling silence of the burning hall ended with a weak plea. "Cult leader?" The sheer shock froze the breath within his lungs, an unbearable glare reflecting the sudden reality. Her pale face was stained with blood, catching the terrible orange glow of the surrounding flames. The devastating sound of loss echoed as the cult leader's final breaths faded into ash. The cult leader's wounded hand, dripping crimson, slipped away into nothingness. The cult leader's final breath whispered the name, Jin Yomyang, into the smoke-filled air. The cult leader, bleeding onto the scorched earth, offered a final, chilling request. "You'll seduce me, right?" A final, blood-stained smile bloomed under the dying light. The cult leader had said goodbye before the quiet end. The cult leader crumpled, several swords piercing deep into her back as Jin Yomyang cried out. The shocking sting of cold water broke the final, desperate silence. That brutal drenching confirmed the unbearable truth of his sudden regression. The final moment arrived wrapped in devastating, orange light. "In this life," she whispered, clinging to his fading warmth. The departing light offered a final, faint smile. "Good no." The amethyst eyes snapped open, burning away the haze of death. The loyal servant Gu Chill beamed, asking, "You're Chill?" Gu Chill's face froze, utterly bewildered by his father's sudden mention of the engagement. Did the past truly force this terrifying declaration upon him? A startled sound escaped Jin Yomyang as the servant brought in the messy remnants of the forgotten feast. This sudden scene confirmed his desperate fear. The regression had thrown him far back. A sudden flush of cold dread washed over him. When did he say that? A single slip of the tongue confirmed the terrifying regression. A single finger gently touched the cold, smooth stopper of the forgotten wine bottle. The Asura king's terrifying roar echoed, demanding his son heed the impending engagement. His eyes burned with utter contempt for Jin Yomyang's pathetic weakness. Gu Chill's shocked shout echoed as the table violently overturned in the sudden chaos. The Asura king's wide, shocked eye betrayed his utter disbelief at the sudden realization. The familiar wooden floor offered no comfort as the young master bowed low, head touching the ground. The lethal weapons, etched with clan names, spun down toward the outstretched, pleading hand. The cult leader's final breath faded as the world dissolved into blinding white light. The cult leader stood silently, fading into the overwhelming, pale light of her final breath. Tears tracked down the cult leader's face, a silent farewell to her final, good life. The Asura king's shadow loomed large as Jin Yomyang knelt, unable to meet his father's fearsome gaze. Gu Chill's knowing, manic grin confirmed the exact moment of his regression. A chilling, low chuckle escapes the masked face. This moment was far from over. "Didn't," echoed the memory under the bright, unforgiving sky. The young master leaned against the railing, the bright sun failing to warm his weary expression. The demon cult leader's crimson eyes burned with a fading intensity, the weight of finality etched upon her face. Guchil's booming alarm shattered the fragile memory, forcing a panicked denial. The loyal servant, Guchil, stared in shock. The young master denied his own bold declaration. A harsh afternoon sun beat down on the survivor's weary face. The tension hung heavy in the clear mountain air as the young cult leader finally arrived. Someone else's aggressive greeting already spoiled the atmosphere of the engagement meeting. The young cult leader finally appeared, yet Jin Yomyung felt only cold dread. That aggressive greeting caused a visible tremor of surprise on the attendant's face. The weight of the recent duel settled as young master Jin Yomyung simply exhaled. The young cult leader watched from the shadows as the intense confrontation unfolded outside. Ma Jinyun, bearing the blood dragon sword, stood ready despite his apparent injuries. The young cult leader watched, her purple eyes reflecting the vast, open sky. Ma Jinyun, clad in blood red, glared, barely standing after the swift defeat. The young cult leader watched, a strange flicker in her intense gaze. The cult leader's bright, eager eyes sparkled under the vast, clear sky. He seemed ready to embrace whatever destiny awaited him at the meeting. Ma Jinyun roared, the insult to his honor echoing sharply in the tense afternoon air. The blood dragonair's blade flashed across the wooden floor with a sharp, shocking hiss. A blinding glint of steel caught the afternoon sun, freezing the young cult leader mid-expression. Her gaze held a sudden, sharp realization as the unexpected duel concluded. The 6 demonic clans orbited the mighty Cheon, their silent arrangement heavy with history. The shadow of ancient rivalry flared as Ma Jinyun screamed, "You ignorant brute!" The young cult leader faced the raging Ma Jinyun, a challenge accepted with a calm, knowing gaze. The young cult leader steps forward, her arrival a sudden, poised challenge in the tense air. Jin Yomyang, confirming his status, quietly acknowledged the young cult leader. The glint of the drawn sword split the crimson air, reflecting sheer, desperate intent. The young cult leader's unsettling, knowing smile cut through the tense air. Ma Jinyun arrived, his posture challenging the young cult leader's easy grace. The shadow of the earlier fight lingered, a silent threat between them. Ma Jinyun lunged forward, the crimson flash of his demonic blade screaming through the air. The sound of the metal echoing sharply betrayed the desperate speed of his draw. The swift, almost casual counter was faster than the red-robed opponent could even register. A raw, shocked cry rips from the subordinate as Jin Yomyang's actions defy all expectation. The crimson energy flashed, a blinding memory of Ma Chul-su's father's lethal swordsmanship. A blinding, golden flash erupted as the steel met the desperate grip. The young cult leader's gaze held an unexpected, cold finality. A blinding flash of steel met the raw, desperate lunge of the blood dragonair. Jin Yomyang's sudden, awakened power overwhelmed the challenge in a sharp, unforgiving strike. The guard's wide eyes registered disbelief. How can this be? The defeated Ma Chul-su was carried away, barely conscious, before the young cult leader. Jin Yomyang carried the limp form, a confused silence hanging heavy in the soft light. The young cult leader offered a bright, knowing smile, completely unfazed by the chaos he had caused. The young cult leader stood silently, observed by the assembled shadows under the vast, indifferent sky. The escort gestures toward the waiting young cult leader under the bright midday sun. The elder smiled warmly through the hazy afternoon light, his judgment hanging unspoken. The defeated Ma Jinyun could only utter one small word into the silence. The young cult leader stood tall, her expression unreadable after the swift victory. The young cult leader finally arrived, her gaze sharp and unsettling. Chief Byok's weary expression suggested he was done with all this nonsense. Beneath the dappled sunlight, the conversation turned fatalistic. Just drink more liquor. One sighed, agreeing, you're right. His violet eyes sharpened over the forbidden scrolls, a silent vow forming amidst the dust. A soft pressure landed upon the dusty, forgotten scrolls. The cult leader stood tall, preparing for what came next. The tight black binding snapped with a sharp, echoing crack against the stone wall. Jin Yomyang sat still on the cold stone, the dust settling from the recent violent clash. The young cult leader watched the defeated man, a faint, knowing smile touching her lips. A chilling, victorious smile hinted at the cult leader's satisfied intent. That's good to know, she whispered, confirming her reign was secure. A terrible realization dawns in the fierce, focused glare. The air thickens with unspoken, desperate intent. The tense silence of the empty hall held only the echo of his heavy footfalls. Chief Byok hurried after her, clearly startled by the young cult leader's brisk, heedless pace. The young cult leader arrived, met by the resigned sighs of waiting guards. A shocking, soundless impact. Ma Chulsu was utterly thrown aside. The cult leader watched, utterly unmoved by the swift, brutal defeat. A brutal impact shattered the courtyard tiles, leaving Jin Yomyang standing over the sudden dust. The young cult leader observed the aftermath, her expression unreadable in the harsh light. The young cult leader offered a deceptively bright smile, unnerving her entourage. The clash ended abruptly. Ma Jinyun gasped, his strength utterly spent on the cold stone floor. The young cult leader stood still, her intense gaze meeting his. She saw only a momentary hesitation before his decision arrived. Ma Chulyu lunged forward, the cold steel of his sword flashing beneath the stark sunlight. The young cult leader watched, a chilling stillness around him. The young cult leader looked at him, her expression unreadable in the fading light. The young cult leader stared forward, her burning gaze fixed on what the future demanded. The young cult leader watched Jin Yomyang ascend toward the blinding light, with falling petals scattering the air. Their paths diverged for now. Beneath the vast, bright sky, the imposing lesser demon hall waited for them. The young cult leader stood utterly unimpressed, causing the attendants' shock to echo in the sudden silence. The shadowed figure murmured, "Let's just enjoy the show." As the cult leader turned away, the strike was unleashed with terrifying, blinding speed. A desperate lunge toward annihilation. The raw power of the ten-fanged divine sword smashed against the sudden, blinding parry. The clash of steel resonated, her eyes burning with terrifying, focused intent. The cult leader's weapon was easily swatted away, silencing the onlookers with a sharp thwack. The sheer force of the impact resonated through the sudden, deafening silence. A sudden, powerful strike sent the opponent sprawling, his desperate cry echoing in the sudden stillness. A shout erupted as Jin Yomyang fell, his failure echoing in the stark silence. The sheer, incandescent rage boiled over in his eyes, a terrifying, desperate sound echoing in the sudden silence. The red-robed youth offered his surrendered blade with a deep, silent bow. The cult leader smiled, her red eyes holding a chilling, undeniable truth. Her sincerity was not about victory, but something far deeper. The young master's ecstatic shout echoed, laced with bewildering, genuine victory. The cult leader remained impassive, leaving the junior disciple sputtering with confused anger. The air grew thick with shock as the true victor stood revealed. The cult leader's unsettling smile showed a dark, unnerving sincerity in this moment of high tension. The cult leader's crimson eyes burned with chilling, undeniable sincerity under the fading sunlight. A sudden, shattering impact echoed across the silent compound grounds. The bright blade, marked with heaven, stopped mere inches from his terrified, screaming face. The blade flashed, and the opponent's shocked face dissolved in the blinding light. She only blocked Ma Jinyun, but against him, the sword aura was unleashed. A chilling shockwave struck as the blade rushed toward the throat. The misty air held only the sound of two blades meeting, suspended in silence. A blinding fury contorted her expression, the crackling static mirroring her outrage. "And no, I didn't mean that," a desperate whisper echoed as the sword wavered. The blinding clash of steel echoed, and the cult leader lay broken beneath the torrent of the final strike. The razor-sharp clash echoed loudly, metal screaming as two fatal blows met head-on. A heavy boot slams down, shaking the very floor beneath them. A raw sound escaped her lips as the word "you" hung heavy in the suffocating crimson light. The shock froze him as the cold steel blade stopped inches from his neck. A searing, desperate scream erupted as her true power flared, acknowledging the painful reality. A raw, disbelieving shock flooded Jin Yomyoung's eyes as the unexpected power erupted. The clash ripped the air as her full intent finally met his defense. The powerful strike landed, a violent clash echoing in the sudden, shocked silence. Cheon Yura's full force finally crashed down, leaving only the sound of impact. A terrible, choking cough finally escaped the cult leader's lips. The sharp air crackled as the killing blow descended, finding the kneeling figure ready. Respect was paid, yet the terrifying power of the Supreme echoed in the sudden silence. A terrifying crimson aura erupted as the cult leader's fury finally broke through. Jin Yomyoung stared, the sudden silence echoing the immense power displayed before him. "You bastard!" Feigning ignorance to the very end, her furious eyes burned with undeniable rage. The cult leader rose above, cloaked in shadows and overwhelming power. As blood-red energy lashed out violently, a terrifying roar erupted as dark energy pulsed, threatening to consume everything. A sharp intake of breath shattered the tense silence. The shock was palpable. The cult leader's fiery gaze locked onto him, a silent promise of absolute reckoning. The cult leader unleashed the final, dark strike, a desperate, roaring sound filling the sudden void. The deafening clash echoed, a desperate, sharp sound as steel met steel in the blinding light. A searing crimson line marked the sudden impact, but the purple eye held an unsettling, cold resolve. The fatal strike descended, but Cheon Yura only managed a choked cry. A deafening clang split the air as their blades met in a furious, blinding clash. The blinding flash erupted as Jin Yomyoung barely deflected the fatal blow. A terrifying tension gripped her as the sword was finally drawn. A chilling smile spread across her face. Her sincerity was never for winning. The cult leader's face contorted in shock. A thin line of blood marred her pale cheek. "No way." The silent thought echoed as dark crimson energy coiled around her. She already surpassed the peak realm by now. This was madness. So this is... The realization hit as crimson blood exploded outwards. The crimson tide of battle receded as something vital almost slipped away. The heavy impact shuddered through the ground as the palm slammed down, finally still. The supreme leader's gesture dripped crimson, accepting a defeated bow. Silence hung heavy as everyone paid homage to the true power. The Grandmaster stood tall against the bright sky, awaiting Yomyoung's answer. A spectral dragon coiled through ancient mist, revealing the presence of heavenly demon Qian Taijia. The calm in her eyes hid the heavy weight of the decisions just made. The weight of the patriarch's gaze settled heavily upon Jin Yomya. The chilling, blinding aura erupted around Qian Yura as she finally raised her sword. The patriarch's crimson eyes held an ancient, unsettling assessment. He considered the surprising ambition laid before him. The chilling decree of the divine cult laws suddenly materialized between them. A formidable barrier now stood against their shared future, etched in ancient script. The former slacker now sought his father's blessing, a subtle tension clinging to his smile. A blinding sword aura sliced the silence between the combatants. Jin Yomyoung met the devastating attack head-on. The younger brother's intense, violet eyes showed stark disbelief at this sudden, unexpected turn. The patriarch merely sighed, the tension in the room hanging thick between the three figures. The cult leader turned slowly, already planning the next engagement with Yura. The patriarch's pale eyes burned with intense, chilling focus in the suffocating darkness. The patriarch leaned closer, eyes narrowed, anticipating his son's unspoken desire. The young cult leader stood alone, the bright mountain air masking a deep chill. A moment of quiet reflection settled before the next confrontation. The mist hung heavy over the ancient peaks, hiding secrets behind the tiled roof. The heavy silk stopped Jin Yomyoung's hand midair, a silent refusal echoing in the tense space. The solemn silence of the valley pressed down as he desperately whispered, "Please." A small clearing of the throat breaks the silence. "Wait," Jin Yomyoung interrupts, a sudden need stopping him. Qian Yura's crimson eyes held a flicker of sudden, unexpected shock. The weight of the cult leader's command now seemed heavy on her. A blinding light framed the brothers, one present, one echoing a faint past smile. The patriarch saw the clear, sharp ambition in his favored son's eyes. The silence of the majestic peaks framed the sudden outburst of praise. Jin Yomyoung walked toward the gate, his presence already stirring the air. The retainer's sudden, loud cheer seemed jarring against the quiet courtyard. Jin Yomyoung simply watched, his own resolve hardening under the midday sun. The envoy shouted enthusiastically, trailing after the silent figure into the bright, jagged mountains. The massive gates opened under the shadow of the fortress wall. As the silence of the courtyard broke, the Jin clan awaited the return, greeted by fervent, sparkling adoration. A sharp, awkward sound filled the tense, pleasant air as the meeting concluded. A roar of shock escapes him as his brother's arrogance shatters the mountain calm. The Jin clan patriarch watched, a cold silence enveloping his decision. The patriarch's stern face twisted into a silent roar, ready to strike down any challenge. The bald attendant pleaded, overwhelmed by the young cult leader's shocking display of aura. The elder stiffened, a faint sound of consternation escaping his lips as he witnessed the display. Yowung's face contorted, raw fury barely contained within the Jin clan's halls. The second young master's unsettling smile promised a victory twisted by ambition. His eyes, cold and violet, calculated the Jin clan's future dominance. A chilling, calculated smile stretched across his face as his hands clenched with unsettling intensity. The brute roared, "Why do you keep on running away like a rat?" His powerful strike slammed against empty air. The second young master lunged forward with a raw, terrifying scream. "I'm gonna cripple you." The air thrummed with blinding speed as the threefold devastating strikes landed. Jin Yul-woon felt the raw impact rattle through his very core. The second young master's fury exploded into a brutal strike, metal scraping against the air. The blinding light erupted as Yeomyung finally unleashed his hidden sword aura. He forced a smile, eager to show his brother what respect truly looked like. A quiet confirmation settled over the stunned onlookers, the air thick with unspoken tension. The young man knelt silently, his defiance overshadowed by a deep, quiet resignation. The second young master stood tall, challenging his kneeling brother with a chilling demand. His sudden display of sword aura stunned the watching assembly into silence. The second young master looked up, shock freezing the triumphant sneer on his face. The first young master offered a chilling smile. "It's because you don't know how to show proper respect." The second young master stared, his small world shattering under that cold gaze. A primal scream echoed across the compound as the ground violently ruptured beneath them. Well now, the patriarch's quiet study held an unexpected proposal that shifted everything. The patriarch's chilling, satisfied laughter echoed in the vast, dimly lit hall. Jin Yeomyung's father stared, his surprise evident in the wide, shocked gaze. The patriarch had not expected such a bold maneuver from his son. The patriarch looked down, a soft "OHO" echoing in the quiet, shadowed room. The younger brother smiled, that look of admiration masking deeper calculations. He clearly believed the Jin clan needed this foundation built from the shadows. The patriarch smiled, seeing the ambition forged in his elder son's words. He asked, "Is there anything you want?" Before the seated patriarch, a solemn silence filled the dimly lit chamber. Jin Yeomyung waited, perhaps for a final decree on his future path. The patriarch's wide, shocked eyes betrayed his disbelief at his son's audacity. The closed-door training was over. Digging into shadow groups became the new path. The bustling marketplace offered a stark contrast to the unfolding dangers. The young man paused, a deep, silent consideration clouding his gaze as the chaotic world moved past. The internal factions of the Cheon clan shift like dust motes in the afternoon light. The atmosphere hung thick with unspoken questions as the young woman stood silently, her hand resting near her sheathed blade. The revelation struck her with sudden, raw shock, turning the air still. The sudden, wide-eyed shock of the boy chewing froze the quiet valley air. His companion watched, sensing the immediate shift in their fragile investigation. The sudden confrontation cracked the tense silence of the valley floor. Beneath the soaring architecture, Yeowun observed the hidden marketplace, an area beyond judgment. Yeomyung's escort showed visible alarm as they entered the strange, hidden space. The imposing hidden gold pavilion stood silent beneath the bright, indifferent sky. The golden crow demon offered a deceptively warm smile beneath the eaves of the hidden pavilion. The tension hung thick in the dusty courtyard as the two factions faced each other in silence. Those unnerving, violet eyes narrowed, assessing the immediate threat before her. That seemingly harmless smile masked a sharp, cutting intent. Even as he spoke to Yeomya, the older man lunged forward, his chilling laughter echoing in the sudden, oppressive silence. A single, brutal preemptive strike silenced the defiant brute instantly. The speed of Jin Yeomyung's move stole the breath from the others. The woman's stern gaze met the nervous figure subtly drawing a concealed blade. She was ready, fully aware of the danger hidden beneath the facade. The powerful figure's looming presence silenced the hushed whispers of the Jin clan members. The truth of the hidden structure unnerved her. The Jin clan's reach was far greater than imagined. Lady Sa stood before them, her composure hiding a deeper network of control. The golden crow demon bowed low, acknowledging the Jin clan's eldest son. Lady Sa's startling golden eyes met the shadowed crowd, signaling a sudden, intense confrontation. The ominous black-spotted iron scheme seemed to grip the vast mountains now, echoing with screams. Lady Sa's sharp, golden eyes held a deep, unsettling knowledge of their hidden purpose. The antagonist offered a chilling, cheerful challenge. What now? Jin Yomyang refused to yield to this sudden confrontation. The imposing facade of the hidden gold pavilion rose, catching the pale sunlight. Lady Sa stood silent, feeling the weight of this familiar, shadowed place. Lady Bayan observed them from the warm, golden shadows of the hidden gold pavilion. Beneath the hazy sky, the Jin clan's heir stood awaiting her reply. The elder gentleman stroked his long beard, his crimson eyes watching the younger members intently. A sharp breath filled the tense air between them. "They were only looking at you," she hissed. A raw, frustrated energy surged around the young woman, her grip tightening on the hidden thread. She was barely containing the rising storm within her. The treacherous spikes of Yunru Valley rose, breathing a chilling stillness around their forbidden entry. The guarded figure trailed behind, his silent protest hanging heavy in the cold, pale air. A familiar, teasing pinch to the nose breaks the tension, suggesting a sudden, close familiarity. A faint sound escaped as the Jin clan's eldest son paused, surveying the dusty, forgotten corner. The lush, forgotten valley confirmed their dangerous destination. Hidden among the green, masked eyes scanned the desolate valley, sensing something amiss. A gentle hand reached out, touching the lush green life thriving in this forgotten place. Perhaps even the exiled find a small measure of peace here. The masked figure stood still amid the bright poppies, as the companion gasped in surprise. He sensed eyes watching their movements deep within this desolate valley. The hulking figures blocked the path, a spiky weapon descending between Jin Yomyang and his companion. "If you don't want to get hurt, get lost," the harsh demand echoed in the valley air. The scarred boy sneered, already anticipating the sweet sound of a preemptive strike. Yomyang's calm resolve did not waver against their immediate, crude threat. A quiet smile broke through the humid air. Beneath the forbidden blooms of Yunru Valley, the defiant brute, gripping his staff, clearly welcomed the impending violence. Jin Yomyang stood ready, his promise to protect the cult leader heavy in the silent valley air. A blunt impact cracked the air as the thugs rushed forward. Heedless of any warning, the silent figure stood cloaked, while the other admitted plainly, "I'm not a combatant." Yomyang's warning was too late as the crushing strike descended with a terrifying howl. He desperately moved, refusing to let this fight end so easily. A chilling smile spread across their face. "It's you who'll be in trouble." Two figures moved silently through the imposing, jagged landscape, seeking something hidden among the gray peaks. The elder stood waiting, the sunlight filtering through the dense, quiet woods. The man bows low, clearly intimidated by the noble presence standing before him. The third elder's knowing smile held a chilling amusement over this unwanted intrusion. The cult leader watched Jin Yomyang with a knowing, almost dangerous smile. He truly seemed to enjoy this tense, unexpected confrontation. The elder stroked his sparse goatee, his surprised gaze fixed on the impossible guest. A slow, satisfied smile played across the young cult leader's face as the woods blurred behind them. The elder's shocked shout echoed against the dense, dark greenery. The third elder observed the kneeling man, a cool silence settling between the structured buildings. That smile, cold and sharp, confirmed the enemy's dangerous amusement. The masked shadow stood silent, a promise of violence lurking just behind him. The elder stared at the heavy purse, a brilliant, unexpected reward glowing in his hands. The young cult leader's sharp gaze met the intruder's surprise. Distinguishing friend from foe suddenly felt more urgent than ever. The forest floor compressed beneath Jin Yomyung's hurried stride, chasing a shadow he could not yet name. A panicked man fled through the dense woods, leaving the masked figure and the observing woman bewildered. The young cult leader stood alone amidst the silent, blood-soaked ground. Her dark robes trailed crimson as the dust settled around the fallen guards. The young cult leader stood firm, her gaze intense under the dappled sunlight. She knew the enemy's every move concerning the Cheon family matters. The heavy mace rested near the sleeping figure, the sudden stillness thick in the misty morning air. Panic surged as the man scrambled toward the unseen gaze, his raw feet pounding the earth. The beaten man recoiled, his ragged form suddenly startled by the sharp presence looming over him. The sheer terror on his face betrayed everything they thought they knew. The whispers of past loyalties faded into the stark clarity of revelation. A heavy, spiked mace lay abandoned by the ancient tree roots, a stark silence following the chaos. This strange man offered a bright thumbs up, oblivious to the danger surrounding them. The eerie, bright light illuminated the masked figures closing in, ready to capture the young cult leader. The masked figure watched, a flicker of surprise crossing the shadows behind her eyes. Even the young cult leader's escorts were clearly not at their peak strength. The cult leader's guard silently approached, their dark forms blending with the dim, aged walls. The masked figure's wide eyes betrayed sudden, sharp recognition in the dim light. The cult leader's eyes held a chilling intensity. She knew exactly who stood before her. The cult leader's chilling smile promised destruction as subordinates trembled in the dark. "Let's go," the young cult leader commanded, swiftly fleeing the confrontation. The assassins scrambled close behind, their pursuit echoing sharply. The young cult leader stood amidst the silence, her bloodied blade reflecting the pale, barren light. The cult leader's shock echoed the hidden guard's wide, spinning eyes. "What recluse?" The words burst out amidst the gathering tension. The cult leader watched them approach, a familiar annoyance coloring the air of the quiet courtyard. "Here they come again," she murmured, already bracing for the inevitable confrontation. A hulking brute with a spiked mace stood ready as the opposing group waited in tense silence. The brute's ugly grin echoed in the tense silence as his cohorts watched. The cult leader stared, sharp eyes catching the slight smirk of the unknown captor. The shadow fell away, revealing eyes like molten gold, challenging every assumption. The young cult leader recoiled. Protection dissolved into sudden, visible shock. Who dared disrupt their determined pursuit now? The cult leader's guardians drew steel against the approaching thugs under the dull afternoon light. A dark, swirling energy erupted, drowning the light in a sudden, chilling silence. The cult leader's guards reacted with wide-eyed alarm, blades drawn against the unseen threat. A desperate shout ripped through the tense silence. "Attack!" The enraged glare promised absolute devastation. "Not a single one of you," she hissed. Great mountain alive. A terrible, swift strike cut through the air, silenced only by the gushing crimson. The cult leader's protective shadow moved with blinding speed, a silver flash cutting through the sudden chaos. The swift arc of the blade silenced the world in a spray of dark crimson. Those burning crimson eyes revealed a chilling, undeniable smirk in the sudden, heavy silence. The flash of lethal speed left bodies strewn across the bloody earth. The heavy weapon crashed down, shattering the precarious standoff into deafening silence. The savage strike landed, stealing the breath from the overwhelmed captain's lungs. The young cult leader paused, her guards instantly drawing steel as a shadow loomed. She wondered if Jin Yomyang knew the ambush waiting for him here. A guttural, desperate scream erupted as the figure charged forward, fueled by blinding rage. The smile held something cold, knowing the Jin clan heir was now within striking distance. A sudden, violent rush of air scraped across the dusty ground as the ambush closed in. A desperate shout ripped the air as someone recognized the looming danger. Jin Yomya. The swift strike landed, echoing with a sharp, unavoidable finality. Late dodge. The sudden, sharp impact echoed, meeting an unforeseen resistance. Jin Yomyang stared at the impossible block, shock stealing the breath from his lungs. The sheer force slammed against the outstretched hand, a dull impact echoing in the tension. A sudden, violent impact sent the opponent tumbling across the dusty ground. The Hidden Trace Manor members stared, shocked by the cult leader's sudden arrival. The man flinched, realizing his sudden display of strength was merely seen as a harsh test. Jin Yomyang's commitment to cover the cult leader felt heavier now. The unseen strike landed, shattering the captor's confidence into sharp, shocked gasps. A flash of steel severed the air, leaving a stunned silence where a head once rested. The opponent's sudden display of technique caused a stark, frozen shock to ripple through the air. The sudden silence after the clanging of the blade felt heavy. Two shadowy figures watched Jin Yomyang's swift, brutal strike. The man roared, blocking fiercely with crossed blades. Realizing the true fight had just begun, the brute's bravado vanished as gleaming steel pierced the dry air around him. Jin Yomyang observed the sudden halt, seeing the expected outcome slip away. The sudden surge of power cracked the silent, fading light. The cult leader's hand snapped out, a subtle, sharp motion against the looming stone backdrop. He dismissed the enemy's strength, already knowing his next move. The sudden shock flashed across his face as the enemy revealed an unexpected technique. His wide, unsettling grin promised pain, making the air crackle with dread. The cult leader's calm gaze met the veiled challenge, refusing to flinch. Her strange, unsettling golden eyes held a cold calculation, waiting for Jin Yomyang's response. The young cult leader stared down the sudden surge of unexpected resistance. He saw their arrogance mirrored in the shifting, dusty air of the mountains. The young cult leader's raw power stunned them all into breathless silence. The hardened assassin froze, shocked as the expected blow utterly failed to land. The cult leader's red eyes held a cold, unsettling certainty across the tense air. The Hidden Trace Manor members materialized, their glowing eyes promising merciless technique. The silence hung heavy, broken only by the sharp intake of breath. As young Master Jin processed the chilling revelation, the cult leader acknowledged the agreement, yet a slight unease lingered on her expression. Her crimson eyes burned with sharp realization as the impossible defense landed. The challenger's smile held a chilling certainty, meeting the cult leader's defiance with a tight, cold no. The young cult leader's steady reply confirmed the unsettling truth hanging in the tense air. The young cult leader's intense red eyes reflected a chilling, unsettling realization. The oppressive quiet of the 10,000 mountains hung heavy under the pale sky. The young cult leader had arrived, drawing shadows toward their hidden sanctuary. A sudden, violent impact shattered the oppressive silence of the hidden manor. The cult leader's gaze burned with icy intent, facing the hidden enemies. The man bowed deeply amidst the hurried, cloaked figures, his false welcome dripping with hidden poison. The cult leader's eyes held a chilling amusement amidst the grim silence. The elder offered a sickeningly sweet welcome, masking the danger brewing. The young cult leader stepped onto the stone plaza, her shadow long in the quiet air. The cult leader stood before them, her gaze sharp, demanding reverence. An elder recoiled, utterly stunned by her sudden, chilling arrival. The shadows moved quickly, their blades drawn in the oppressive silence. "What's going on?" the cult leader quietly demanded of the unfolding ambush. The cult leader stood still as blades circled, knowing her presence shifted everything. If she refused their terms, the wooden floor would soon run red with spilled blood. The third master's manic grin cracked under the sudden, unexpected pressure. The cold, looming architecture swallowed the cult leader in a silent, dark expanse. The chaotic maze swallowed the light, signaling the true depth of the trap. The cult leader drew both blades, her fierce gaze locking onto the approaching shadows. A sudden, sharp sound echoed in the suffocating gloom. A sharp, echoing thud marked the swift, brutal close of the exchange. The cult leader's blade met the sudden crimson torrent. A horrifying, sharp silence falling. The shadow-cloaked figure stood over the fallen, the air thick with the metallic scent of fresh blood. Her crimson eyes gleamed, slicked with the dripping blood of a weapon. "Nonsense!" the aged man roared, his shock echoing in the sudden quiet tension. "Young cult leader, watch out!" The violent impact resonated, freezing the air with raw shock. The masked figure lunged, the air shrieking under the force of the sudden, violent strike. The sharp, metallic clash echoed as the blade met its mark. A violent burst in the oppressive silence. The cult leader's raw shock flashed, now swallowed by the shadow of the impending attack. The air thrummed with sudden, violent motion as her own desperate block barely met the attack. Did he truly believe he could shatter her guard so easily? The heavy swing met its mark, spraying crimson against the oppressive silence. A chilling scoff echoed in the oppressive silence, the figure's eyes burning bright in the gloom. The air fractured with blinding speed. The silhouette whispered, "It's you." The blades met with a violent, shocking shriek in the charged darkness. The shock of the blade meeting metal echoed sharply in the tense silence. Jin Yomyang stared, realizing the enemy claimed the deadly maze. The cult leader parried the sudden, dark strike with a desperate, crimson grace. That glint in her crimson eyes betrayed a terrifying, cold calculation. The sharp clang of steel shattered the charged silence as their blades violently locked. A fierce snarl escapes, meeting the blade's sudden bite with raw defiance. The blinding light of his descent swallowed the space, a final, terrifying strike echoing in the sudden silence. The blinding flash accompanied the devastating impact. His sword was met by brute force. Jin Yomyang watched the shocking collision, the air vibrating with violent energy. The blade struck, a sickening thud echoing as the cult leader was driven violently against the wall. A bead of sweat traced a line down her tense, furious face. Her crimson eyes burned with trapped fury and desperation. The blinding light illuminated a terrifying confrontation, revealing Jin Yomyang's unwanted arrival. Those violet eyes gleamed with an almost dangerous confidence under the pale light. The silent, masked figure stood between them, an ominous void in the cold light. Jin Yomyang suspected a grave trap was finally sprung. A blinding impact flashed, and the captured man gasped, "It you." The cold steel of the blade flashed brightly under the unsettling, sharp light. A chilling silence descends as the question hangs. Upside down? His predatory smile chilled her to the bone. The danger was finally closing in. The sacred hall was now utterly engulfed, a terrible sea of orange fire licking the shadows. The rough hand pulled back the hair, revealing a chilling, predatory grin. This unexpected malice settled like ice in the tense silence. A fierce, cold light cut through the sudden, suffocating darkness around him. The right guardian smirked darkly, while the injured woman kept her gaze lowered. With a fierce snarl, the right guardian Wang Qianjiao unleashed the true, terrifying extent of his power. The enhanced sword gleamed, carrying the character for heaven in the chilling dark. The fierce impact echoed as the two figures landed. The clash of their desperate escape finally resolved. A deafening whoosh ripped the air as the guardian made his terrifying move. The deafening crack heralded an overwhelming, blinding burst of energy. The air screamed as countless throwing knives sliced through the dark void. The Qingsheng expert snarled, deflecting the barrage of sharp steel with barely concealed rage. The sharp clash echoed as Jin Yomyang moved, protecting the cult leader from flying steel. A sharp sound pierced the air as Qian Yura lunged forward, her resolve blazing in her eyes. A sharp, blinding clash echoed as the enhanced sword met its resistance. That devastating blow stopped Jin Yomyang's desperate pursuit cold. The blinding clash of steel erupted, a desperate, synchronized strike against the inevitable. The right guardian's fury cracked the air, a raw, desperate sound echoing the chaos. A snarl escaped him as the blade flashed, a final, desperate attack in the growing darkness. A chilling, knowing smile broke through the dark air. This woman's intentions were clear now. The crimson light reflected in Jin Yomyang's resolute eyes, sweat tracing a desperate path down his face. The guardian finally arrived, his slow, heavy steps echoing in the sudden, sterile silence. A shared, resolute gaze passed between them before the words finally began. Two conflicting energies clashed, a silent promise hanging heavy in the crimson and violet shadows. The air itself screamed with a deafening impact, shattering the surrounding stone. The sheer, desperate loyalty between them cut through the chaos of the burning battlefield. The guardian, Wang Qianjiao, held the blade steady, meeting the cult leader's desperate gaze. That eerie smile, holding the blade so close, meant the fight had turned personal now. A raw, guttural sound ripped through the tense silence. The aged elder struck with savage force, a clear declaration of intent. The young cult leader stared, shock painting a stark portrait on her weary features. The force of the blow shattered the ground beneath them. Silence descended over the fallen. The right guardian's face twisted in sheer horror as he realized his lapse. He stammered an apology, blaming the message delay for his failure to appear. The right guardian's sudden, deep bow acknowledged the unthinkable situation. Someone still dared to call him troll, even now. The right guardian's unbelievable explanation hung heavy in the still, shadowed air. Even amidst the inferno, the logic was clear. Wang Qianjiao wouldn't betray them now. The sky bled rose and ash, casting long shadows over the remaining few. A chilling silhouette appeared, making the air still and heavy with dread. The loyal subordinate acknowledged the command with unsettling stillness. The chilling confirmation echoed in the fading light. That chilling, triumphant smile confirmed the elder's true, wicked intentions. The unexpected word hung in the air, catching Jin Yomyang's breath with cold confusion.